Oh.
Why don't you call, start the meeting?
Yeah,
such
let's
and
call
such
the
a
meeting
time.
to order. It is 2:15. Committee members in attendance: Rachel Pianta, Hugh Taylor, Steve Holt. Can our guests state their names for the tape, please?
Richard Bruce with Inspired Technologies.
And David Wright.
Thank you both.
Sure.
I want to propose, for purposes of time and our guest schedule, that we ask them questions first, and the next order of business, if we don't have quorum for this meeting, I mean, should we say 3 out of 5 is fine? Okay.
We have a quorum.
Then we're good on that. Okay. Then what I'd like to do is to spend a little bit of time discussing the proposals that were brought to the table today and our next steps with them, and that will be a good, big, solid agenda for our meeting today. So, Hugh, do you have questions for our guests?
I have a couple,
Okay.
and I've been doing this a while, and my
Oh, Paige.
Hey, there we go. Our numbers are growing.
You're late.
Perfect timing.
There's one here.
First job.
I haven't seen him yet.
When you're ready, my handout.
All right.
My homework.
I had.
Just want to let you know Bob called. He's running a little bit late.
That's what happened to me. I couldn't get out of my driveway. They're doing the
Business?
bike path.
Geez, for a minute there, it brings back my days in snow country. Somebody said, I can't get out of your driveway. I think, it's snowing.
Or it's flooding. It could be flooding down here.
For all the rain, that it made a mess, so they're having to go back and undo or redo.
Paige, we're starting off with questions for our guests from Inspired Technology.
All right.
I'll be happy to open it, and I'll preface it by some of the things that I would want to address may have already been addressed either by hardware or software or policy changes since the times I've been asking for, involved in requesting public records. Our biggest hang-up, or one of the two biggest situations or problems or items to address is email pools. Now,
Can I say one thing? That's the only part that we're involved in, just so you know.
oh yeah, no, I mean,
And I guess there was a day.
that's why you're here.
Exactly. I understand, when you're, I guess there could be a data request that we could be involved in also.
No.
We're not involved in any part of the other.
Extensive data requests aren't even they're in the paper box somewhere. So, no. This is from maybe 3 or 4 years ago. This my first lengthy email or email request. I want to get emails from here to here from one particular commission. Too much, excessive, and I happen to go to Coast for my dental work. And popped in there one day, and Nick Ruda was there. And I said, what is involved in pulling emails? And he said, nothing. He said, 10 minutes. True, untrue. If it was, this was, I've heard different stories about changing in servers or something. So it was from 4 or 5 years ago. So I don't know if it's true. Or you tell me. What steps or time is involved in email pulls with not a zillion data fields. This was one commissioner, one time period, you know, basically.
It really depends on the search criteria. I just did one Friday, and it was for a former employee. The search was, and the way it was worded, basically every email, the person worked here for less than a year, but basically the way it was worded was every email a person ever sent or received. So when you get something that's extensive like that, it can take longer to do. When you run the request, it actually tells you that it wants the return items to be less than 500. So if it's larger than that, you have to break it up into different requests. So
that's a software limitation. I mean,
sure,
exactly. Software.
Exactly. It's a speed. It's actually a server speed limitation. It'll work. It'll do the request, but it warns you. This could take.
Oh, it'll slow you way down.
Exactly. Okay. So it asks you to break it up into searches of less than 500.
But it will do more. It'll do.
It will. But I tried. Like the one on Friday was 1,500 or 1,600 returns. So you know, it's obviously ended up being 4 searches is what it ended up being. But I tried to run all of it at one time because I wanted to just run it, let it go, and come back for it. Right. I came back 10 minutes later and it actually had errored out. So I broke it up into 4 different ones. Went fine. So that one took. It probably took 45 minutes.
What was the cost?
No cost.
No cost?
Yeah, we haven't charged for one of these things. I'm going to be already charged for one of these things.
They've been very gracious.
Yeah, we're already under contract to do work for the county anyway.
Okay.
Right. Our problem with the email pulls are not with Inspired. It is with the review time is the issue.
But that's a normal. I would say normally under an hour, you can probably do 95% of these things.
How much of that is input time and how much of that is CPU time?
CPU time.
Okay.
But you have to watch it. Just like the one the other day, if you don't watch it, it could error out. I actually had some issues with the dates on that one. It was actually Bill Ward was the person who was being searched on. So the first time it was run, we put the wrong year in, so we had to go back and correct that. That was the correction that I was doing. So you had to get the right dates, right month. And then I had to figure out how to divide it up into 4 different searches. So it doesn't make that extremely easy for you.
It's basically go 4 different date periods that are back to back.
But it's 4 different searches. It's 4 unique searches. So I do a search, it comes up with 515. I back the date up, 3 days, that kind of thing. And so you have to keep track of that. So it's, it's a little bit of a process. Mm-hmm. But again, that's because, I think it would sit there and spin and process it. It would just take longer.
There is another time lag that we do have, and that's more along the lines of people getting the exact criteria to us that we need to search for. Because if somebody's very vague, obviously an email search could turn up thousands and thousands of emails.
And that's where I was going with that point. He was only employed here for 10, 12 months or 9, 10 months, whatever it was. If that same search comes in for, an employee's been here for 10 years, you're talking about thousands and thousands of emails. So a lot of times we'll get the search and we don't know what it will return. We'll run it. It'll say you got 20,000 emails. So then we'll have to go back to Jessica or Virginia, whoever's doing it now, and say it came back with 20,000 hits. You've got to tell them to be more precise in their search criteria.
And I apologize. I had acquired this from you previously. What is the mail archiver you're using?
It's called GFI.
GFI?
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I think you were saying earlier about 4 or 5 years ago. I think that product's been here for about 4.
The returns were actually the EML format instead of PST previously. The new format is PST, which is obviously easier for everybody to search, whereas the EML is actually to be dragged into Outlook. So now you can just open up the one file and you have them all right there.
Okay. As a matter of because of, anyway, I'm looking for documents on my own computer at home, as we've now sit here. Now say this meeting, say you guys, we keep you here for 2 hours, okay? Now I'm sitting here, but my machine is, how do you count time? The time that you physically count in and out, or
honestly, the way we've done
anything so far, you haven't built on, anyways, it doesn't matter.
Exactly. That's kind of what we're going with. I think that the reason we've done that is, at most, we've had, like you said, you're able to multitask and do other things while you're doing that. So, again, you have to have somebody who's doing this assigned just that. You can't have 5 or 6 people coming in, so it'd be one of us doing the search. But I agree. I think that's the problem. I think that's the issue, is we've never felt right billing them money when we haven't. It's never taken us longer than a couple hours worth of man time.
What would the optimum search for a person off the street, which basically we are, what's the optimum search parameters or whatever from your end?
If they would actually say the end user, if they would give us the actual employee or employees that is involved, the exact search criteria, if they knew it.
Give me an example. Like,
what was one you said or whatnot?
Well, the one I just did was, I don't even remember there were 2 searches. The first one was basically every email to and from that employee. And the second one,
not a good criteria.
Right. And the second one was, it didn't say that, but they basically, the dates they gave me were his entire employment range.
If they could give us the actual maybe subject of the email.
Right, that's what I was going to say.
If they knew that for some reason, if they'd already maybe seen it.
Well, say it's, in the case of Bill Ward, but fire training.
Okay.
Not necessarily in the subject line, but in the body of the email, and
sure.
It goes boom, boom, right?
That'd be perfect.
That would be fine.
All right.
Now I think what happens is, like the one that I had this other day, not Bill Ward's one previous, was all the emails between 2 employees sent and received. So it'd be every email between these 2 employees for that day range, and that basically is every email that the 2 of them received. So you're going to get 2 copies of every email. So it's really better.
Well, all right. So how would you frame it?
Well, it's really better if you're, now again, if you want to get 2, it'd almost be 2 separate searches. It'd almost be, I want every email from employee X concerning harassment or whatever your topic is, and then it would be another search, every email from employee Y with the topic harassment. Because if you don't do it that way, you're going to get dual, and that's the way it's supposed to work. I explained it to you in an email. I think it's meant to be that way, because it gives you 2 searches. If you want every email between the 2 of us on a topic, if I ask for it as a citizen, I'd want to see your mailbox results. I want to see my mailbox results, so I can see that you received it. I'd want to see you got it. I want to see I got it. I want to see what time it was sent, those kind of things. So I think that's why you have 2 copies of it in those searches that are from 2 people sent and received. It's supposed to be that way. Because if not, if you got one return and it wasn't on this side, if you didn't see it in this user's mailbox or this return, then you would say, why not? Why didn't they get it? Where's it at? Why didn't they receive it? So I think it's supposed to be that way.
And the other thing to really worry about is that date range. We've got to have that date range, because some of these requests that we've got in from people over the last year or 2 have neglected to have any date range in it. And with those requests, they get pretty large pretty quickly.
Okay, so date range, in terms of developing the query, that's not your problem. Your problem really is the number of returns that you get.
It is. If we see that it's something astronomical, and then we bring it back to them and let them know that, you're going to have to let everybody search through 20,000, 30,000 emails, and that's very, very, very time consuming, obviously.
And we've discussed that, having somebody that is well versed in this and understanding this, that can negotiate with, I don't use the word negotiate, but explain to the requestor what's involved. The problem is that sometimes human nature is, well, you're trying to keep something from me, and that's why you got to have a key person that has people skills that can convey that. I'm trying to help you here. I'm not trying to reduce the return. We are trying to reduce the returns. We're trying to reduce the returns that are invalid and get you what you want. And I think if it's couched that way, it'll help a great deal.
And I think that's everybody's intent. We want to do that too. The other thing that we don't want to do is we don't want to be responsible for leaving something off. I'd rather give you 3 copies of something than not give you a copy of something.
Just like you were saying before about like the criteria for like fire training. You know, let's say that you didn't say fire training. Let's say you just said training. I mean, it would be so many different issues that had nothing to do with fire training. Maybe it was training on a new software application or training on, you know, on the job or something like that. And that's the issues that we get a lot of these that have, you know, nothing to do with what the search is really about. But that's the criteria that was actually given to us.
And the search could be done a couple ways. Fire training, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but if you said search for fire training, it may have to have those fire training together in one part of the email.
Do you
said
do the
fire,
stuff
you can do it that way, or you can just say fire.
Exact term or part of term or whatever.
Right. So,
do you have, or does what you just said show up on your computer screen where you could take a screenshot and get it to one of us? You know, you with me? Rachel does a lot of research. What you just said, and or this date.
Oh,
do you have that?
You could see how it actually works.
Yeah. What you see when I give you a request, and you say, okay, I'm going to run this request, and I'm assuming you push a button, and here's your screen, and
it allows you to add the button that says add criteria.
You want a screenshot of the search?
Just the software, not actually a search. You just want to see how it works, right?
Yeah.
So a step-by-step process, basically. Screenshot each stage in the process so you can see this is what the screen looks like.
There's a lot of
what's the screen look like going in? You know?
Yeah. I mean,
here's your request. Here's your computer. You punch up the software in order to put this in. What's your screen look like? Send it to us. That might help us in, you think, narrowing.
I mean, it's a big kind of if-then. I mean, I don't think we have a problem just sending a screenshot of that. I mean, it's just you add another condition, so we can have like a date range from, a date range to, and sender, requester. I mean, we can continuously add them. But
there's probably only, 6 or 8 total. I mean, there's like I said, date, there's search the subject, search the body, search the whole email, search. You know, there's what other ones would there be?
There's a lot of ones that would not be useful to anybody for what we're doing here.
It's a drop-down box. You know, you go add a condition, a search condition, and then it's either date, sender, recipient, those things. So
pretty much
basically would just you could just pull that whole box down. You could see the things you could search on.
What would it take to be able to return the number of hits based on a query and make that available to the public? Not returning the data, just returning the number of hits that either somebody here could do, because what I'm seeing is there's a large loop. By the time somebody makes a request, it goes to you, you say, oh, we've got 20,000 hits, it comes back here. A lot of time has elapsed. If there was some mechanism by which users could just go in and see what we would return in terms of hits.
I mean, it's a training issue, so it depends on. I mean, I honestly,
the comfort level of the employee to be in the back end of that database.
I don't know. I mean, I've dealt with Jessica for the last couple. I don't know if Jessica. I don't know the internal workings of who's trained or who's doing public records. I don't know all that.
Well, I'm talking about making it available to the public. I mean, I searched the USPTO site, and the USPTO site for patents is virtually identical to what you're talking about.
That's a policy question for them, so I really don't know. I mean, I'm sure that you could. I mean,
I don't know
you could make it
that ability or not.
Yeah, I mean, you would. I think the only way to do that would be to give people the ability to do the search. Because once you do the search, it doesn't give you a number. It actually pulls the email
data right there.
So it does pull the data, not just give you a number of hits.
Well, it pulls a shot of the data. All it is a format.
Yeah, if it was like 500, you'd have like 50 different cases that you could thumb through all, you know.
Is it possible to create a step in there that, let's say you created a public portal and it brought back the number of hits, could it be frozen there so without a code you couldn't go any further?
I mean, there are limitations to the software. I mean, it really is not.
It's not meant for public access. It's really meant.
So another application entirely would have to be created.
And I don't know that. I don't know that. I mean, that would be a custom written application. So we could ask them if they do that.
It's not, I don't think that's an option. I don't think the cost is. I'm just looking at a way to try to reduce that. Again, if we have the right person as the custodian that can interface properly with the requestor, I think that's probably the most savings we can have, I think.
Again, I think once it reaches our ticket level, because that's what happens. We're not notified when a public records request is made. We're notified when, I don't know what their internal procedure is. Again, that's not really our responsibility or something that we do. When they send it to us, then we usually, just like any other ticket they send us, we try to look at it as fast as we can. But everything we have is a 24-hour turnaround, tries to be. Now, what may happen sometimes is we may get that request, we may run it and say, oh God, this is 20,000 returns. Email back to them and say, hey, it needs to be more specific. And then they may have to go back and contact the person. And that could take 3 or 4 days. I could see where that could be a time lag. But usually, by the time we get it from them, they've already done some of that. I think they've internally decided, this is too broad. I think they may be doing some of that on their own. But, there could be a step in there where they say, tell me how many hits it is.
But just so you understand, they can't say it's too broad.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
Right, statutorily. But it can be too broad because too broad costs a lot of money, and that's what we're trying to reduce. We'd like to get as broad as we possibly can and get as many returns as we possibly can for the lowest cost possible.
Yeah, and I was just what I'm thinking is maybe there's a step in there where they would ask us to give a number of returns. Give that number instead of the public doing it. Then it would be the first part of the request. If it's
in-house here, you're talking about. Oh yeah, that would be great. So
But
at the same time, by the time we're actually in there and we get those hits, it's only a couple more buttons for us to actually export it out. So it's not that much.
Like you might as well go ahead and produce it, send it over. I got you. You're already so far down the path. You might as well.
Breaking it up, like Richie said before, in chunks of 499 or whatnot. If we have to go in there and do that, and it does take just a little bit more time. We're doing it for 2,000 to 3,000 emails or whatnot to find the date ranges that'll fit.
A little bit with respect to what I emailed you, Richie, about, which I was just passing along what the county attorney had suggested, that she felt her biggest savings would be to cull those emails so that when you see all those redundant, if you could just get like the final chain, and I know how difficult that is because when people reply, sometimes they don't reply, they don't copy their reply in there, so.
And again, that's my problem with that is I don't feel comfortable as a company, and I'm a company owner of Inspired Technologies, of going through and doing any culling of data at all.
Well, that wouldn't be something you would do. That would be some software that they would run as the county attorney.
And I think that's also what we talked about. Once your issue came up, I talked to Bethany and told her that I think there could be a training issue because the way these things are provided in PSTs, you're getting a PSD. So if you have 2 email conversations or 4 email conversations and there are multiple copies, you could combine all those emails into one PST, and then sort it, and then delete.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So that
copy because when
functionality exists to some extent.
Well, it does, but Outlook. Yeah, in Outlook you could have a folder. You could create a folder in Outlook and call it whatever, and then you could copy all the emails into that. Now I think they do some sorting of emails and things before that happens. So
that being
yeah. So we give them just we give them, like this weekend, 1,500 emails. They take those, and there is some sorting process that happens of those 1,500 emails. I don't know what that is, but I know that there's something, and then they go to the attorney, and the attorney looks at them and does whatever they do. Again, I'm talking a little bit about attorney because I don't know what happens. I just know that there's a process. We send it back to Jessica, and then Jessica packages it and sends it to the attorney.
So there were 2 requests. One was made for emails to and from this individual over a date range. Then there was another request for all of the emails between that individual and another individual over the same date range. Wouldn't the first search include the second one?
Right, that's what I told her. We didn't do the second one.
Oh, you didn't do the second one?
Right.
Oh,
the
I thought you
second one
did.
is included in the first.
The second one is included. Okay, because it was all emails.
Exactly.
And that's why it was 1,500. But there were much less than 1,500 he would have sent or received. That's all of the emails that are changed from somebody else. So if he's a mass to all the fire service, for instance,
Exactly.
that could be
all users,
that could be
all board
60
users.
people easily. I see. So that's why the return was so high.
Well, not necessarily. That was, I mean, if it just includes any email he received or sent. It could have been a personal one, you know, that was all those emails. It could have been a mass email to all county employees.
Fire service or whoever.
Exactly. So all those he was on would have been in there also. So it could, I mean, that's not a ton of emails, honestly, over a 10-month period for an employee.
Do you capture? I'm sorry. Do you capture things that, if, for instance, they're emailed to a Google group, all the recipients of the Google group too?
Anything that's sent that meets that criteria would go. Yes. If it's sent, if you say I want all the emails sent from this person using county, not using online email. If they're logged into Google, obviously we don't get emails that are sent through Google.
Right.
You don't, because what I'm saying is, like, if we have a group, say we have a Google group that has 100 people, all you do is you're only sending an email to one email address, but it's going then out to 100.
Yeah, it doesn't return 100 cents. It would just be one send from him.
1 cent. So you okay?
Yeah, it'd be one email. Would it be all of those would be returned?
It would return all of them that Google then goes ahead and
No, not in that case, because it'd be a distribution group, like a distribution group to Google. It would say,
Okay, he's right. There's a little bit of criteria here. If you did what Richie's saying, one group, you actually had that, it would only send out to one. If the group was external. If the group was internal, if it was like to all employees, that would be an email for every individual employee. So if it's an external group, it's only one email. If it's an internal group.
So any forums, any Google groups, you would not see those returns from the external distribution.
unless that was an internal
one
group.
For that.
Right. You can then further research it if you wanted to and find out who got what. Okay, I was just trying to find out why there were so many, because it doesn't seem to me that in 8 months you would have that many emails, but I guess...
Well, again, just the first few months there were not many at all, and then close to, I'm sure the more comfortable he got in his job and the more familiar he got with everything, he started sending more emails. So, then there were several hundred in November, December.
Right. Well, we went from lieutenant to chief. I'm sure there was a huge increase
but at the beginning of time, but 100 emails a month sent and received, is that right? Yeah, 100 emails a month, basically what that was for, what was he here for, 10 or 11 months, so 100.
So that's not unreasonable, because it's
120.
we're talking about a year.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, so 110, 120.
They still got to read all those, is that right?
Yes. I don't know the process that they do.
Well, they read them all, and then they read on them, and then they take, this is okay, this has to be redacted.
Yeah,
Maybe that's 500 pages, and then this is 700, 1,200 pages.
Yeah, I really don't know the process that legal does at all. Again, once we're out of it, we don't have any other responsibility. We're not involved again unless they want to redo the search. So.
But the most important criteria of what I'm hearing is that the most important criteria to return a reasonable result is a narrow date range. Is that a fair statement?
Well, but also the way it works is it's between multiple people. We've had some that have been, I want to see every email between, I won't name people off, but these 5 employees, from this date range. And that's, everything that's sent and received between all these people gets, it ends up being...
That is a lot.
Yeah.
If it is 5 people, like you're saying, sent and received, that's 10 separate searches for us, plus the date range. So if they say between this date, and also this date and this date, between 5 different people sent and received...
Ain't that inevitably some duplicates?
Oh,
Because you're grabbing them from both ends.
Yeah, and we talked about that before you came in.
Yeah.
There's you do want to see, or I would, even as the employee, I want you to see it, because if they ask for every email between you and I about harassment, and they want to see, everything sent and received from you, sent and received from me, with the word harassment in it. So when we return them, it's actually 2 separate searches. It's basically everything in your mailbox that has harassment in it, and then everything in my mailbox that has. And there's, if we're communicating about that topic, which is probably why there's a search, there's going to be multiple.
Lots.
But in that return, I would want to see that you got all the emails. The same way you as an employee, you would want to, because you want to make sure that you got it. It's in your mailbox. There's a record of you having it. Same way over here in this mailbox. We want both people to show that there's a record of it. Now, what we were saying before is you could combine those and take those deleted items out. But again, it kind of, you know, the process is to show every email. And I don't really have a great answer for how to do that other than to combine them, sort them, delete the ones that are duplicates. There's not any other way of doing that.
And I may be behind, but records-wise, you gotta have both ends of it. You talking about after the request is made, deleting stuff?
What I said is we don't delete anything. You know, we give
y'all got to give it to us.
We give them everything. So now I think that Steve was asking if there was a way to do that before they got it, because I think the bottleneck, but the most time-consuming thing is she's having to review things twice. So Heather's actually said, you know, if you could get rid of this, it'd cut down some time.
But there's nothing that really sticks out that would get rid of, no software that would really...
Well, again, the only way to do it right now that I know of is for us to combine them in Outlook, and then we would be physically redacting things.
Well,
that would be something the attorney I would think.
Right.
We wouldn't.
So I think that, I mean, maybe it's a little bit of training on their part to show them that, because if they did sort it, let's say they sorted it by subject. We bunched those 2 different searches in there, and they sorted by subject, and they could see 5 of the same subject in there. I mean, identical with forwards and everything. Maybe they just pick out the last one sent so that we know that it contains the entire chain. The only problem with that is if you actually have a chain that went to somebody else, you know, and you have subchains inside, that's kind of where it gets a little bit hairy of anybody touching it. That's why it's almost better just to give you too much data instead of not all of the data.
Well, it's like you can't have liability. I mean, you can't have liability.
And we're trying to remove ourselves out of that completely, where we don't even know.
Understood.
Okay.
And there may be a newer product, there may be a newer version of GFI that does some of that. But again, I think the purpose of the tool would be, and I think you could probably get rid of some of that by the searches being a little bit less. Because, you know, if it were a search that said every email from you with the word harassment in it, and one from me with the word harassment in it, that's 2 separate searches. And basically what you're doing is you're combining 2 searches into one and then give them to her. That's the way it goes. So she's doing 2 searches at one time, really, and that's why
This comes back to training and having the right person to interface with the public. So
I agree.
yeah, so I think that's really where we need to focus our discussion. Does anybody have any additional questions for?
Yeah, I would, in searching a scan, that's this way. Let's see, broad, what you're saying. Is there the depth of an email chain? I think that's what drives, from what I've heard, that's what drives everybody nuts. You know, staff, attorneys, whole deal.
Oh, sure.
Is there any way? There's no way around it, though. Yes? No?
There's not in the software we have now.
No clean way to do it, but I would think that it either exists somewhere or should be a graduate project for somebody to work on.
Yeah, again, and that was one of the things that you emailed me about, and about the Barracuda device, and we've installed one Barracuda device. I don't have any history with it. I haven't dealt with it yet, so I can't speak to it. I don't know if you had done anything with it or not, but you know, the problem with it is the cost. I mean, this one's paid for, so and I guess it needs to be weighed. That would be my, as a Waukegan County citizen, if I were actually analyzing this, you know, like you guys are doing, I'd see what's the cost of the attorney versus what's the cost of the new software. If the new software can cut down, you know, X amount of dollars, how long does it take to pay for the new software?
Well, in theory, the attorney is not supposed to be paid for it. I mean, they're supposed to get charged for accepted work, and I didn't ask for that.
No, we're just pretty informed, we're just in questions, so it's good.
Now,
I got a question.
I don't know about that.
Go ahead, Bob. You have another question?
Yeah.
I had come to my understanding that you all had in the past. It had come to my understanding that you all in the past had not charged, if it took 30 minutes or longer, had not charged that time. And that's your business. I get it, I understand, and that's okay. I'm trying to get to the bottom of what I hear and what's right and what's not. And does it take 30 minutes to do a search?
It depends. We kind of covered this earlier a little bit. Yeah, again, this thing's kind of been a little controversial, so we saw from the beginning that, first of all, trying to keep track of your time is hard because, especially if it's how do you track an email back and forth between Jessica and I? I spend 5 minutes typing it, or 30 seconds typing it, so it's kind of hard to track your time. So we basically said anything less than an hour we wouldn't charge for, and we never charge for one that I know of.
So it's just a thing where you've just not spent from
there were a couple that we spent a lot of time on, but still I wouldn't say it was more than maybe 4 or 5 hours of company time. So it's just not something that's
the company, machine, personnel.
Exactly. All those things, it costs money for me to run my machine.
Right.
So all those things cost money. There's a cost associated with my time or his time or whatever else. But, it's just hard to come up with those numbers. And we kind of just said we'll do it, as I don't know how to explain it other than saying we really don't want to enter into that realm. People go, why'd you charge me $50? Why'd you charge him $150? Why'd you charge him? So it's just hard to explain.
Understood. Now, what some of the people's concern that I talked to about this was, are we, as you as a citizen, is there a place to where we incur that charge back? Either your business is taking the loss, you're losing money to do business with the county.
And that's kind of our model with customers. We like to lose money. The way we do this, and this is not necessarily on topic here, but we have a set amount of money we bill them monthly. And so we do everything we can under that umbrella of money.
Yeah. Some months are good, some months are bad.
Some months are good, some months are bad. Some months we get killed. Sometimes we do after hours things where we're here for 20 hours. 4 or 5 of us here for 20 hours on the weekend. So it just kind of averages out over the long haul, and we've done it long enough that we can say for this size group, for these issues that they have, it's going to be this amount of money.
And I don't mind if. I hope I say this right. I don't mind if you have a business model
where we lose money.
That's fine with me. I don't want you to, because I think that's not the way you run business. But I know what you're saying. But I don't want the county. It's where I'm going. Is to getting it on the end. And if we are, that's still okay. I just want to know the charge part. But if that answers my question, I'm sorry.
Our hourly charge doesn't change. We went through an RFP process last fall, and they rebid out the network services portion, which this falls under. And so we have a set amount of money we bill each month, whether we do 5 things or, which we never do 5 things, or 5,000 things. So, and that's just kind of the way we've done it. And a lot of it is we're so familiar with stuff here and that's kind of the way our model does work. Is at the beginning, when we first come into a place, we get good. And then as we go along, and we get familiar. We try to get newer equipment if possible, and newer technologies. All those things kind of go down, but the money remains constant.
Your profit margin improves over time.
How many different queries in one particular search? Was it 5? You said roughly 5 fields that you can.
I think we can keep adding to it, but honestly, the majority of it is the actual search criteria, the subject or whatever you're looking for, the date range, which takes up two spaces in it, usually before and after, and the person or persons in it. So that would be 5.
But is there like a search? Is one of the categories search subject line and then search?
We never just
content.
Unless somebody specifically says just search the subject line, we search the entire email, body included, just in case.
Next question. The other thing we have with these extensive use situations is reading them all for exempt material. Okay. If someone writing an email with exempt material in it, puts exempt somewhere in the email,
Much like these emails.
Would you end up with two files? These are the ones that say non-exempt, and this is exempt.
How much more difficult is it to search for an additional criteria that would be either public records exempt or PEX? It's virtually zero time for you, right?
This was just
this
for
wouldn't
the
affect it anyway.
attorney to look at, because our
In
wouldn't
this
change
case,
anything on our
I don't know
search.
what the name of the document is, but in this case, it's because it says public records exempt, has nothing to do with our search. If you were searching for Howard, or document, or whole, or whatever it is, it's still pull it. Anything would get pulled.
But the point is that we would like to have potentially, one of the discussions is to have the author or anybody that would read the email put in the subject line public record exempt or some code, PEX or something, so that that would be pulled, so it would get special scrutiny, so that whoever's doing the review on this end would say, this file, somebody that's intimate with this email has already read it, has determined that there's potentially exempt material. Not that it is exempt. We wouldn't want that person to say it is exempt, but for them to have a special file that the attorney or whoever on staff would be looking through this would say, I really need to go with a fine-tooth comb.
That would be another line. If you said, I wanted to search for every email from you and I that had the word harassment in it, and then that would return, during this date range, that would return X. You run the same thing, you'd add one condition that says exempt, and then...
Just one more condition. So from your perspective, it's virtually... How much additional effort? 5%? 10%? Just another... It's just...
Another search.
Okay.
And, I mean...
So it would be another search, it would be another... Now,
Have you ever run one of those?
Would it be another search or just another criteria in the search?
Another criteria.
In the search.
Another criteria in the search.
But it is technically another search. I see what you're saying.
It does not contain. I've never actually...
It's one run.
So.
It's a different...
Oh, no, what he's saying is they want to see the ones that do contain that.
Okay.
So in that same, if there's 1,000 emails that are returned in the first search, they want to pull out the 15 of those that say exempt.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes. Potentially exempt. Yes, exactly. That way we get special
There would
attention.
be one other search criteria at the bottom that would say, in the same search we just did, look for the word exempt.
Especially if you know the exact words, then we can put it in quotes, which will actually narrow it down a lot. So if you, let's say that you saw the email.
PEX is what I was thinking, potentially exempt, something like that. So that's just another safeguard, so that, because when you're reading through these and reviewing these, I'm sure you kind of get, that deer in the headlights kind of thing over a period of time. But if you had a file that said PEX, hey, somebody that was involved in this intimately, that had read this previously, thought there may be an exempt piece of information in here, then it would just get special attention. That's all. Just another safeguard.
Sure. That's nothing to us.
Do those searches have weight? In other words, dates first or dates?
No, just everything that's in that criteria gets pulled, period.
So if you put PDF or whatever on it, it would just pull all them?
Yeah. If you
within those dates, or all them that's got that
Depends
on
on what you put. If you put in the dates, then it pull everything inside the dates.
If you
so
wanted,
what the dates have more weight than
No.
PDF?
Well, I mean, there's a set of criteria, so I mean, it's not. If you say all PDFs in this date range, then it will pull all PDFs in the date range.
It's not an or. It's not an or search, so it's not.
It's
not everything exempt or in this date range, so it has to be both.
Right.
If you put two
Right, that's
criteria,
right.
it has to pull both of them.
Right, so basically, I mean, like Boolean searching, so
Not Boolean, though.
why can't it be Boolean searching?
It just doesn't do it. There's not an or, and the or would have helped us in some past searches. We'd love for it to say or. We've asked them if it would say or.
Wait, so where does this software come from?
It's a
Probably by GFI.
Yeah, it's a big company that does this software for.
When you're saying Boolean, you just mean true false, period, or
and or.
And or. Like think library searching, like Library of Congress.
It doesn't. Yeah. It's basically, and again, we wanted to do it that. Now, that also, the reason I think it doesn't do it is because it would expand the search returns you know, if you said I want to see anything that says exempt and in this date range or in this date range,
Right.
anything that says exempt would be coming back.
But even and would be fine. Let's say if you had your search term.
And is what it does.
And
Just
date,
apply
it would pull your, let's say, PEX within that date range.
Exactly.
So
it would have to have PEX in it and be in that date range.
So you have to do both. It's not a matter of reporting,
or
it's a matter of limiting your search.
Exactly.
So they've got both of those descriptors to pull. Okay.
And that's what we were saying. He was saying that if the search is, again, I keep using harassment. I guess that's my word of the day. But you know, harassment from these two people during this date range. That's the search. That's the actual search that came in. But they also want to say, I want to also pull anything inside this search range that has the word exempt in it.
Right. Okay.
And then that would give you a specific 10 or 15 emails, maybe in a specific chain.
And this goes back to training in the interface, because if you say that you can search within a date range and have terms that pull up within a date range, and that this is what will likely happen because this is how the software works, that'll help.
Yes. Yes.
But
There's a follow-up question. Let's finish it. Let me finish his thoughts, and then we'll come back. Go ahead, Bob.
Now, this is not my best subject, so you have to help me. I'm at elementary. I got a date, January, first to last January. And then I've got page clean, and then I've got what was it, PDF or something?
Yes.
Oh, PEX. The PEX. Essentially
Possible exemption.
Yeah, possible exemption. I should use that word. Then wouldn't it only give me in that date page clean and exemption? So I wouldn't get all the other ones. I would get only the exemption.
But if you said I want to see everything in that date range she sent and received that said that, and I also want to see everything she sent and received and said that, then if she sent her an email with the word exception in it, you're going to get it from her as a received item. You're going to get it from her as a sent.
But you wouldn't get all the other stuff. You would only get the stuff you can't see.
Exactly. That's right. It's an and.
So it's multiple searches. So you would end up having to say, well, there's 3 queries that you would run in a database. So they would, it's like cross-tabbing your data. So you have to say, like, I'm going to cross-tab it this way, and you might have 3 indicators: Paige, Rachel, PEX. Well, it's actually 4 because the date. So that's 4 things that you're cross-tabbing in the database.
And
running as one
get very few.
Well, yeah, narrows your search. And then this is saying.
And that's what we
But
said.
the reason was putting that word in for the exemption would be so we knew it was exempt, but then you'd not be getting all the stuff that you're actually going to get to read because they're going to take the exempt stuff out.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think that your customer, your citizen, should be asking for the exempt things. I think what's going to happen is the exempt things are going to come up. I think that is the behind-the-scenes help for the staff, so that they can say, all right, here's my non-exempt pile, here's my exempt pile, I know what needs the extra scrutiny.
But if I get everything with page clean and a date, then I'm going to get those exempt ones, and then I'm going to get these other ones with exempt ones.
I don't think PEX should be an option for the citizens. There's no reason for it to be. That's an internal issue to help with the actual culling through sifting of data behind the scenes. The PEX is not for the people.
The citizens are not entitled to exempt.
That's what I'm saying.
Right, exactly. So there's no reason for you to search.
It wouldn't be in the search.
You wouldn't be in the search. It's not be an option.
Point.
But the point being, or let me, if I'm clear, more clear. I want something with harassment in it, but the harassment was Bob Danzy, whose social security number is such and such and such and such and such and such. And then when I send that to him, I put exempt in there. So I'll get our conversation relative to harassment in one file, and the idea being that there would be, every place I typed exempt, there would be another file. See, so what you would end up with, you might say there's 1,000 emails, and there's 15 over here. Well, the attorneys should be concerned with the 15,
but they're going
not have to read 1,000.
Keep in mind, realistically now, the number of record emails that are going to be potentially exempt is going to be a very small number. So the return time for you is probably going to be very short. I mean, what would you estimate? I mean, I'm just going to throw a number out there. I'd say easily less than 5% of all the emails that are out there have.
There's no. Are you asking if there's an extra charge for that or something?
Yeah, we're just trying to get
but
just the
that's, I told you, that's one more. Basically, if you did the search, say we completed the search. The initial search was harassment. So harassment, exported it out. I've already exported that PST out. It's done.
Gotcha.
And then all I do is go add one more condition, search, and then
by the time your finger comes off return, it's
right. And then export it out.
Right.
They would have two. Right. Basically, if that
those 15 have been.
If that were the procedure that you went with internally, if they said if you want those, it would be another either return we gave them, or we would say there were no exempts in the search.
I just don't understand why you got to take it out.
I kind of see what you're saying, because if they've already returned, let's say they've already returned all those emails, and it's 1,000 of them, 15 of them are exempt. It's in there somewhere, either in the message body, right? Then that could just be another thing that maybe there's some training that needs to be done internally, where they just go into Outlook and they search. They can search inside of that PST file, and they can say exempt.
That would make sense.
And then they look at it and they go, well, here's 15 of them that are potentially exempt. And then they can look, yes, no, this one's not exempt.
Or question, and then it goes up the ladder.
Right.
Regardless of where the search gets done, as long as what's important to me is that somebody that's intimately familiar with the content of that email has raised a flag in their mind that, hey, this could be potentially exempt, and that's just another level of safety that I think should be implemented, because it's easy to do. It also makes people very cognizant when they understand that they're now required to do this as a staffer. Now you're going to be more cognizant of what you put in an email.
You could also do that without having to make it a separate search on our end. Once she pulls the PST
right.
she can just
the attorney could do it.
That makes sense. Right. Now, the attorney still reads every single page, because she sat in that chair and said, I'm going to read every single page either way.
I agree.
Right. So I don't know, and I don't know where your end result is, but I don't know what it began by.
Well, it's just my first step.
That's
my first step, the personal responsibility in putting in an email. You're responsible for what you write.
And my problem with that is you end up hanging somebody with it.
That's exactly the second or third.
Somebody who is looking at information, and they're trying their best, and either a piece of information gets out there or a piece of information does not get out there, and suddenly it looks like, oh, they're trying to hide something, when, oh, they're trying to do their job so hard, like Virginia was talking, 33,000 emails, you're bound to make a mistake. I'm sorry, I make mistakes every day. Shoot, I made one yesterday, a biggie.
But isn't it more important, though, to catch the mistake? Isn't the first thing?
I'm not saying it. I don't think it's bad to catch the mistake.
Okay.
It's just that if you use it as a justification to question somebody's ability to do their job or something like that, I just don't find that a positive outlook.
Well, here's the thing. I think the potential for danger is very high in terms of what Paige is saying.
I do too.
So I think we're on the right track when we talk about staff training, but I think that the PEX designation could open up a larger can of worms and create greater stress and undue burden on staffers that I don't think is our intent with this committee. So I personally could not vote for that, because I think it would not be fair to staff.
And if I may, when the attorney was here, I agree with you with training, and she agreed with us with training, but still we can't afford it. We got no money, and training is expensive. So
well, here's the thing, though. I think we can justify training, because Virginia said the training was only $125.
No, we need to stay on topic with these guys.
Okay, yeah, sure, you're right, because we should ask them their questions, and then once we let them leave, then we can continue with this. Because we're getting more into the proposals now, and I'm sorry, guys. If you have any more questions for these gentlemen, because we have now kept them here for over an hour.
We'll send you a bill.
Thanks. Add that into that 5,000 things a month. We just recorded that.
Is there any question that we haven't asked that maybe pertains to us
that we should ask?
That we should be asking?
Good question.
This is your exit ticket out the door.
We're doing anything that you want to I think, in technology, anything is possible, but I think that at some point you're going to, it will get to the point where it takes a lot of time to do. I think this is a great tool for
the public to be able to see emails or for the public to be able to find things that are useful out there. And like you said, it's also the ability, or gives somebody the ability to call that person out for making a mistake. So, but, we're not, we have the tool, the GFI tool that we use now. We're not married to it. We use more Barracuda products for other things than we do GFI. This is the only GFI tool that we've ever used.
A question that I have, because I'm not totally familiar with your business. I mean, I hear, Inspired Technologies, but I don't really know everything, Sorry. You guys are not application developers then?
We do have a group that does that. But we don't have that relationship with the county.
Oh, okay.
We do some state contract work where we develop applications for state agencies. We do some county development in Leon County.
Okay, so you don't design unique products for we'll call out.
We do, but I promise you, you don't want to get them done here because it'll be expensive.
We ain't gonna pay for it.
All right.
And that's not. I mean, the things we do are usually multi-year projects. You could probably find somebody to do something like that. But I would still say there are products out there
that already exist that we can purchase. Okay.
That I would. I mean, a Barracuda is $5,000.
Okay.
It'd take $25,000 for our group to come down here and even.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Thank you for that clarification. Okay.
And I will say with the search criteria, there's probably a fine line before the more criteria you give us, the better it is for you to get the less amount of results. That being said, if you get as granular as to say, I want emails from this person to this person, also this person to this person with this search term and this search term, sounds awesome, but at the same time, we're talking about a multitude of searches. So instead, it may only return 20 email in total through all those searches, but it's going to take us a lot more time.
Yeah.
So if you know the exact terms, it might be better to search more people than just to say, I want all sent and received from these 12 people, if that makes any sense.
But also, I think that what's happened in the past is the original search hasn't returned what the requester wanted, and then it's basically on every email. I want to review it myself on every email between all this. So
we've done a lot of that back and forth. It didn't return anything. Well, then I want to change it. That didn't return anything. I want to change it again.
What they're looking for doesn't exist.
Right.
And
sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes it does. Sometimes we change the search criteria, and hey, there it is. The email that they were looking at.
I use the MLS a lot, obviously being a realtor. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but that's exactly all it is criteria. And that's why there's questions. It's the exact same thing.
You were looking for a house that cost this much, that has bedrooms, and all those things, and it has to have all those pieces.
Sometimes it comes back zero, and if you're trying to do an appraisal, you got to back up and take something.
Yeah.
But where I was going to go is GFI. Again, the reason we started using GFI was we researched it for other companies before. So when we'd already done it for other companies, and we said, when they came to us and asked us for an archival, we said, well, we've used this one, we're familiar with it, it does a pretty good job. Now again, that was 4 or 5 years ago. So I haven't even researched another one since then. I know we did a Barracuda install for a customer, but I don't know the differences. I don't know how to really weigh those.
Something we can help look at too. Like we were saying, we're not.
But right now the bottleneck is not with the actual searching and getting the raw data. It is the culling of the emails and going through each and every one. It's like you read each chapter. You read the first one, then you read the next one. You're like, well, what happens next? And you read the next one. And it'd be nice just to start at one chain and read all the way down instead of so many clicks.
And that may be possible.
That could be done within.
That may be possible in a newer version of GFI, which could be a cheaper cost than Barracuda. The reason that we like Barracuda is, in other realms, they do email filtering and web filtering and backups and different things, is you don't have to have a server. This GFI actually is software that lives on the server. So eventually the server will have to be upgraded and replaced. Where the Barracuda is its own device. So again,
our problem is the human factor.
I have only one statement, and I'm through. I hope you open it, and that if you know now what our concept of our problem is, if you come and figure something out and tell Mr. Edwards, then you don't have to have us to fix the problem. Is that fair? A fair statement?
We find another technology.
You find the technology, and it's out there.
Please come tell me.
We had that discussion with him the other day. We're actually doing a budgeting meeting about future things, and that's one of the things that it'll have to be addressed when the server that it's currently running on is off warranty. So we'll have to either purchase a new server, install the old software, buy new software, which is probably a possibility because it may not work with the new operating system. There's a bunch of reasons.
Or an upgrade or something, but we'll
exactly.
look at that.
So we'll have to address it then, and that's what we told him. At that point, we would, just like we do with everything, we'd say, here's this one, this is what it does, this is what it costs. Here's this one, this is what it does. Here's this one, and that's what we do for them.
That's fair to me.
So I think that we've probably gone as far as we can with Aspire Technologies, and I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Run while you can't go to getting sick. Now, that said, I have about, myself, 20 minutes before I have to be on that call for work. So we have some proposals on the table, and I did a brief review of them as they were handed to me at the beginning of the meeting. And I want to say that what I prepared and what Steve prepared look like amendments to the existing procedure that we could work with. What you have put together is a list of observations about our process that are not entirely recommendations.
Well, I can turn them into recommendations.
There are certain things that your recommendations, observations, and suggestions. The second paragraph is more indicative of what you've actually done here. And let me quickly address the fact that when we talked about our schedule, that was before we asked the commission to extend the time we were allowed to meet. So I would not vote for meeting every 2 weeks now, because we now are meeting longer because we asked for an extension beyond the original parameters of the committee.
Well, also in the fact that we got started late, we lost a month. So.
Well, what's the suggestion?
I think we've made some progress by actually having written documents that can be combined into a proposal. I think we've really come to a conclusion that training is going to help the problem. And it's not our job to come up with the money in the budget. It's our job to make a recommendation to the county commission. And it's their job to say, can we, given the resources at our disposal, solve the problem based on the recommendations made to us by the committee.
Well, like Virginia said, there is a class. I look at it this way. Here's a class that costs $125 and it's 2 days.
Yeah.
They don't go and do it. And then there's a lawsuit that costs $100,000. I mean, weigh it out.
Sure, penny wise, pound foolish. Exactly. That is a good investment. I've heard members of this committee say that fundraising is possible to solve this problem. Well, perhaps, citizens, if the citizens will call it, this is important, then they're going to put some money towards this problem.
I mean, $125 to me is nothing, because they're learning what the legislature has done, what is before us, and it helps everybody.
Were there any more proposals, Bob or Jeff, Colleen? Did you guys?
I have a proposal, but it's the existing. Yeah, it's written. It's the existing
you don't want to
policy
change
that we
anything.
have.
You're fine with this.
Mine is pretty much the existing. Plus, I've done some research, and Virginia's words really echo in my mind that training when she said $125, and I thought to myself, that is just ridiculous. That we didn't go and do this training because we thought $125 was too much money. It just does not make sense to me. I think that was a poor choice. It might have been done during all the Ben Pingree stuff and all that was going on in here. I don't know. But I really feel that person should get the training. I really do.
But now I'll interject here a little bit, as I wasn't privy to that conversation, but I do know for a fact.
You weren't here when Virginia was here?
No. But I do know for a fact, okay, that she was trained on multiple occasions. So maybe there was one occasion it was $125 that she didn't get.
An annual update.
No, it's an annual update. Every year the legislature does it for people.
I understand that, but I guess my point is that if you're trained and you go through the training and there's an annual update, the tweaks are so very small, I just don't think that you can say that it was
Apparently
a lack
the
of $125 was
Apparently the tweaks weren't all that small.
I think the other thing, though, is that one is that there's procedural and policy that the legislature does, but there is also, I think, the kind of training that Steve may be thinking about is actually one-time training. It's not what the legislature does. It would be more like advanced research training, the kind of things that
can read the First Amendment.
Well, okay, there's that. I mean, there are other people besides
government agencies send their people to what the First Amendment. You know, I think I sent you some of the PowerPoints.
Yeah, so
you can go through that PowerPoint and you can be pretty. I mean, you just go through, without even. I mean, you can just go through the PowerPoint and have a good understanding of what your rights or what your responsibilities are as a custodian. And then if you were to go to one of these free trainings, it's just up in Tallahassee, you spend a day.
No, right. So what if we write this in and say that one, because I think the training that we've been talking about, the legislative training, 125, is important, but I think the First Amendment training is a good resource. If we write that into our proposal, we're recommending that whoever staffer, there's one, point staffer, or maybe we think that multiple need to do First Amendment training. We write that into our recommendation.
I know what he was going to say. Go ahead, Hugh. It's already there with the First Amendment Foundation if you read their emails, right?
Well, it's not only that, it's I have examples, real examples of very basic mistakes made, all the training in the world. I mean, after the first thing about
we cannot be responsible for end user error. Okay, so you can train them, you can lead them.
That's my point on training.
Yeah.
You can train a bus driver.
Yeah.
If the bus driver has an accident,
it happens.
The county will be sued.
Right.
If we train with checklists, we can avoid we can avoid heavy time reading
But human error.
Human error
you cannot control for every aspect of human error, human frailty. You can put in the training.
That's the point.
Let me give you a great example. I ordered a dozen bottles of wine, a specific wine for a guy. All they did was hit the wrong button. I got 12 dozen cases.
It happens.
And he starts pulling them in my store, and I looked at him and I said, "Why are you doing this?" I said, "I asked for one case." They hit the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Right.
And here comes 143 more cases.
But
that's just an accident.
Yeah.
I understand that, but let me
No.
down though.
What I'm talking about is basic stuff. I mean,
You don't think that's not basic?
But what if you called again the next week and the same thing happened, and the next week the same thing happened,
then you would use a different
and then
supplier,
the next
right?
week the same thing happened.
No.
Go to a different supplier is the answer.
No, there's only 5 suppliers out there, and I'd be sitting in their office the next week.
Okay.
That's,
Well,
so
you would take corrective action. I guess that's my point, is that, there's this, and I appreciate what you're saying about not wanting to call somebody out for making a mistake. I come from a different school. I was taught, my father taught me, and I will continue to teach my children, that when I make a mistake, the first thing I do is I fess up to it.
Oh, I agree with that.
I try to fix it
I
as best
agree
I
with
can,
that.
because sometimes you make mistakes you can't fix. Sometimes you can't. You just can't fix it. So you try to fix it as best you can.
Correct.
And then you move on from it, and you learn from it. And if you don't call somebody out for making a mistake, that just reinforces their concept that they can make a mistake without a consequence. If you make a mistake, there should be a consequence. Even if the consequence is, I made a mistake, I apologize. But for that, when somebody doesn't take responsibility for their actions, and nobody says you need to take some either apologetic reaction or some whatever it is, that just manifests more of that same behavior. So, I understand where you're coming from, not wanting to call people out, but calling people out is a good thing because it improves the process. It will weed out those that are either not capable or don't or have some issues or whatever it is. So,
there are different management styles at play here. There are different ways of doing business. So you can say, I'm calling someone out, which is a very combative, confrontive approach, or you can say that I'm going to speak to someone and we're going to have, a learning opportunity and corrective action to be taken. So calling out is a very specific mindset about how you deal with people versus saying, we're going to sit down and talk about where this happened. So there's a different approach and a different way of thinking about it.
And the term call out, is very generic. It's accepting responsibility for mistakes that are made. And
if I'm calling out, it's not a friendly thing. If I'm going to call someone out,
Coaching is friendly.
it's not.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, coaching taking a management style that is
You look at need to look for positive way to do it.
Punitive.
Yeah. Well,
Like with my teachers, my students, formative assessment versus punitive measures that they don't actually learn from their mistakes, they just lose points. So it's a different way to
And I would agree that may work with some people, but not with everybody, and that each individual responds.
But that's not our
to
job.
And here's the thing. So maybe people say I like Paige's leadership style better as a manager. I'm going to quit working for Steve and go work for Paige. That's neither here nor there.
I understand.
Because we are in this committee trying to come up with a proposal that at least 3 of us can vote on, and right now we are at a stalemate.
I understand. Let me bring this back full circle, and I'll be happy to.
Is that your call?
No, it's
It's my fault. I don't know how to make it stop.
I'll be happy to be outvoted, but I will make the point clear is that what was said was if you put in the safeguard, to put in the PEX, let's say, that may cause somebody being called out, to use I think the term that Paige used. And my concept is that if there's a mistake made and somebody didn't put in PEX when they should have put in PEX, there should be a consultation. Now, she used the word call out, okay, and I'm also a straightforward person. I have very little tolerance for imperfection. I'll admit that straight up. That's me. I want things done correctly. I want them done orderly. I'm anal. Things got to be in order.
I understand.
And for us to say as a group that no, we're not going to add an extra level of safeguard that will help ensure that exempt information gets released, because ultimately that's what it'll do. Nobody here can debate and say that would not help to prevent the release of exempt material, only because somebody may have to be held responsible. Or
training is a preemptive measure. The idea that you're creating a
foundation,
a potential, you are sowing seeds for a potential problem with the PEX system. Setting someone up to fail. I really believe that.
Well,
I do.
why on earth would a very educated individual that does this for a living, an attorney, say it's a good idea if I put public record exempt in the subject
Because in an attorney's office where they are highly educated, they do that kind of thing every day. I'm sorry.
And their job is to look.
And their job is to do that. And they are held to a higher standard, which is what
and
the
you
bar
don't think
is.
county employees are capable of?
I'm sorry, we don't have the
looking at
money
something?
to pay county employees to do the kinds of things that you are asking to. They are not educated to that level. They are not.
Did you read the proposal? Let me read through the list.
Put something in.
May I read through the list? This is part of my proposal. You did?
Yeah, I did read your proposal, actually.
So you know what the major areas
Yeah, I do, and I just,
pretty straightforward.
It is, but
Is it straightforward? Do you think just about every county staffer should be able to understand that?
I specialize in teaching reading and literacy, and I'm going to tell you no. I'm going to tell you no, that the average person does not have the reading capability to make many of these decisions.
And you'd be surprised at the number of people in this county who don't have that ability.
Even if you graduate with a 12th grade diploma, your reading ability for the general public falls about 6th grade. So no, I don't think that I would expect them to uphold that. And I'm not being mean. I'm talking about a professor of education saying, I know what I deal with literacy every day.
It drives you nuts.
Yeah, it drives me nuts.
I can see it.
So you don't think that with proper management style that if somebody were to release this information and not identify it at PEX?
I'm afraid that there would be a punitive measure and people would lose their jobs, their livelihood, and it would just ruin someone's professional life.
But that's not your determination to make for this committee, right? That's going to be an administrative decision.
I'm going to vote on a proposal that I feel is responsible and that is not going to do horrible things to my neighbors in this county. So I will vote no on a proposal that includes those provisions.
Okay, well, that's fine. I mean, we can have a minority report and express our opinion.
Yeah.
And we'll be happy to do that. It's just the concept that you don't think employees should be responsible.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
That's not what
I'm
she
saying
said.
at all.
You're twisting her
No,
words.
so-
that's
so-
not what
so-
I'm saying at all.
So what you're saying is that you're setting up somebody to fail? I've heard a number of things that I don't agree with. So what is it you
I feel that
specifically-
your expectation, while looks great on paper, I think...
But it's not a final. It's only submitting this to the attorney so that they can review it. This is not the employee making the decision as to whether or not it's exempt material, Rachel. What does
Are
this-
we holding an employee accountable because they put PDFs on an email?
that is not our decision to make. But who holds who is
I don't even
responsible?
want to put it forward as a potential.
Is that man in there? If he wants to hold somebody responsible, he can. If he doesn't want to hold somebody responsible, that's not our decision.
I don't think that's within the scope and charge of this committee for me to make that recommendation that you're talking
Oh, no,
about.
I think that if it provides a level of safeguard, my personal opinion is, and I'm not telling you how you should vote, but my personal opinion is that if there is something that we can provide as an option to the county that will help safeguard the release of exempt material, that we should present that to them. If they want to take up the discussion as to whether or not there should be punitive, for you to say, I'm not going to support this because I'm afraid of what may happen further down the line, I think is beyond...
Well, here's the thing. I think actually what you're proposing is beyond the scope, because I think the problem that came to us was how to make this process of making a public record to streamline it. And I don't think that what you're doing streamlines. I think it makes it more complex. So I think that actually your proposal is going beyond the scope of it. And I've been very upfront and honest with you in saying that based on your proposal, I gave you an honest assessment of your proposal, which, now you're kind of trying to throw back at me, Steve, and I don't appreciate that.
Okay. But our charge is also to try to save the county money. One of the ways we save the county money is by preventing a lawsuit. The way we prevent a lawsuit is to put in another safeguard.
I believe education and training versus another layer of bureaucracy.
Whether or not we need a safeguard, I think should be up to the attorney, and I think we should ask her if there's a safeguard that she could put in there, but I believe she's happy with what she's done.
She told us.
And when she sat here, we pretty much nailed that down. You were here that day.
But that discussion was, now let's clarify, that discussion was using PEX and allowing it to go directly to
and that's your determination.
No. That was my original proposal, was there should be no reason to review these, okay? And that was my original proposal. Then the secondary proposal was, I backed off that, and I gave some ground, and I said, well, all right, let's just, as another safeguard, utilize that system so that the county attorney would still review it. It would just be something in a pile that would make them do a double take, so to speak. As a matter of fact, I believe Bob said that was a good idea. I think the record reflected. You said that's a good idea.
I'm going to go with, no, don't appreciate that. I won't allow you to do that.
That's what you said.
No. Now that's what they ended.
Okay.
You've talked and talked and talked. And the other day I called you a filibuster, and I'm calling you on that. And his turn.
Your hands getting tired too.
I have two things. I'd like to get a motion to accept these minutes from the 2/8 meeting. Number one.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of accepting the minutes?
Aye.
Minutes have been accepted. I'm sure.
Training. There's been a lot of talk about training. And I'm not going to look anymore, but in that folder is something. I have an original of a document I requested a copy of. All the advanced training, the up-to-date training, the most expensive training, etc. in the world will not eliminate. I mean, that's a rookie deal.
Well, look, then that's a person. That's, again, end-user error. You can train someone, they still will make a mistake.
Necessarily, because training and a checklist is qualitatively.
Are you going to write the checklist?
Quantitatively, I'm getting my stuff mixed up. It's quantitatively effective.
Okay. Are you going to write the checklist?
Yeah, I'll be happy to write the checklist.
Then, in order to move this forward, you've written something, I've written something.
I wrote something. Well, I'm using something.
I think what you have is the starting point.
I think it's my vision point.
Okay, well, fair enough.
But it's...
and I'd like to better understand your proposal, because I'm...
Okay, well, and I suggest that, we're not going to take time for you to read this today, but I want you to take it and read it.
And I actually was going to ask Steve if you would take what I wrote and compare it to what you wrote, that you prepare your checklist and send it out to the, post it as a document for the committee. And that our next meeting is a compiled proposal that we can spend an hour or so arguing about, which is going to drive Bob nuts because he doesn't think we should be talking about this right now, and I understand that. But I think that our very next meeting needs to be talking about a compiled proposal. And Steve, I want to ask you to do that. I'm going to trust you to take my document and put it into yours.
At this point, and I'll be quite candid, I'm a very straightforward person. I think that the lion's share of what's been done here has been by myself, and you've contributed with this, but I see, little contribution.
Well, here's the thing. I believe that...
And I think this should be a committee. It should be shared. And if the concept is what it is, even though you don't agree, if they don't agree, they should still contribute. Just because if the committee agrees this is the path we should go...
Before you say anything, Paige, hold on one second.
Can I finish?
No, actually you can't. See if you can't right now. Because I'm going to tell you what these two people have been saying for the last several meetings, because I've read the minutes and I've been here in the meeting when they said it. They wanted to stop about a month ago and say the policy was fine, and that was where they stood. Okay. So if we call it to a vote right now... then I'm going to vote with them. I just want to keep moving forward.
No, then I suggest you do that. If you got the votes, then that's fine. If you think that the policy, if you think that the policy can't be done,
no, you've got it.
It's fine like it is, and there's no way to streamline it.
Well, I'll make a motion.
Fine.
Then make the motion.
I make the motion that we leave it like it is now, and take it to the commissioners and see if they're willing to accept it like it is now.
I second the motion.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those against?
Aye.
Okay, so you have a 3-2 vote.
And then we find out what...
So what's our procedure to move it forward then to the commission?
That's up to the chair.
All right,
no, wait a minute. I thought we said that any proposal we would bring to the commissioners had to be 4-1.
But you said at the beginning of this meeting 3.
No,
Forum. Okay, so 4-1. So we're at an impasse. Okay, where do we go from here then?
Then that's what I thought.
Yeah.
No, okay, thank you, because I was
let's just check
earlier.
because I'm 99% sure when we review.
Can you find that in the minutes?
It's there.
Okay.
It's there. It is 4-1.
Right,
Any proposal has to be 4-1. Well, let's do this. I'm going to
email because I'm going to be late for my call.
I think that fails.
Okay.
And
that fails, and I may.
We have to. What we may have to do is talk to the commissioners and just see what they think and what they want to do.
Yeah, 4/5 for draft.
Okay, all right. So we need then. We've got 3-2.
We're at an impasse. It's not going to change. Just call spade a spade and shovel a shovel.
Which actually accomplishes the same thing then, Steve, because it means that the existing procedure stands and there's nothing to move forward.
But I feel like we should say something about the training. I really think that training is necessary.
So that's the basis of the proposal, and that's something negotiable that we could have a vote on that right now. Do you have a motion?
I make a motion that we put forward a proposal to the county commissioners that the person who is the custodian and who will be going through these records to redact them have training, yearly training, which will allow them through the legislative process to see what changes on the state level. And if there is other training available that they deem necessary, the commissioners deem necessary, boy, this is going to be a long one.
Mm-hmm.
That has to be.
Okay, hold on a second.
That has to be David's thing.
That they deem necessary, then they will have that training also.
And here's the thing: if she makes this proposal, we can you can add an amendment to it to add the training and checklist that you want as well, and that actually could be a proposal to move forward to the county commission to make the recommendation to David Edwards.
Motion right now.
But I'm letting you know procedurally you could get that piece that you want to add on to this.
But we won't vote for it.
I need a second.
Well, see,
I need a second.
This is
okay.
So.
Yeah, I second.
All those in favor of Paige's proposal?
Discussion, right?
Absolutely, discussion.
Okay, discussion first.
I'd just like to read, once again, I think I sent this email out, but for those that didn't read it. Our charge was the Public Records Committee is expected to generate the following work product: a written list of specific changes to the current county policies and procedures and or suggestions for altogether new or different policies and procedures for public records requests, and a line item estimate of the expected cost savings to the county. I'll just finish up. Copies of the committee's report will be given to the county attorney, county administrator, the public records coordinator, and all commissioners. All county personnel have reviewed the committee after county personnel have reviewed the committee's report. A presentation to the commission will be scheduled.
I think there's no way to estimate line item savings actually, though.
I think what we can do is find out what the classes are. I mean, let's face it. I mean, Ms. Arts goes to county commission training. Dr. Kessler used to go to it. I believe Mike Stewart has been to it. I don't know about Randy, and I don't know about Jerry Moore because they're new to the commission. But, you know, they go to this training. So if they're going to training, why isn't the person who's in charge of the public record going to a training?
Is there not a single thing on the list that I provided, something that anybody would want to bring forward? I'm having a real hard time with the concept of it's fine like it is, there's not anything at all we can do. I feel that virtually everything in this world can be optimized and streamlined and improved. And for us to sit here and say that there's absolutely no way we can do anything at all, except for training, you did mention training. And I think training is important too, believe me, I'm a big believer in training. I've got no problem with training, but that's just a small piece to the puzzle. If you've read, I have a hard time believing that there's not a single thing of the, I don't know how many things I submitted.
But that's your opinion.
Okay, you don't think that converting the documents to electronic format will save the county money? What's the downside to that?
I need a number of times I have to say something to where you start believing that that's what I really mean. I don't know. You pick the number and I'll say it that many times. We just had the attorney. Was you here when the attorney was here?
I was not here for that, no.
She just rewrote it. She didn't have a problem with it. She said, doesn't matter what you're going to do, I'm not going to let this stuff out unless they read it and I read it. It's the end of the story.
Converting to PDFs is a whole different subject, Bob. So you just compared an apple with an orangutan.
I compared it to what I was talking to. I'm saying to you what we've got is okay.
Well, here's the thing. I think you have bargaining points here because you're proposing training. You're proposing documents to PDF.
Well, I've got a number of them. I'd like the opportunity.
Well, you only have so many bargaining points that other people on the committee might be willing to concede back to. So yes, you have a number of points. You're going to have to probably decide what your priorities are because you already know that Bob, regardless, is a no vote.
So I don't believe Bob's read the proposal. I don't believe he's read and understood.
I don't know that he's going to because he said 3 meetings ago that he was fine with the existing things. I'm not sure that he and Bob can stop me at any point and say I'm wrong, but I have a feeling that he doesn't want to read your proposal because he feels that it goes beyond what needs to be done. So, and that, you know, whether or not you feel that's fair.
I copy of it. I didn't get a copy of it.
I think that's a detriment to our county.
He didn't get one.
Oh, he didn't get one. All right.
Did you have an extra one for him?
I'll give you that one.
I think that's important.
I'm just very frustrated that I would take the time to put effort into this and not at least be considered. I think that's not in the spirit of what we're charged with. I think if individuals are not willing to at least read somebody's proposal, and
I read everything I take.
I understand you.
I've already read yours. I read it when you gave it to me when we sat down.
All of these are totally unacceptable. There's not a single thing, even in terms of improving the.
I personally haven't said that they're unacceptable. Okay. I said that I think you need to prioritize because there are different priorities that have been named by different people at this table, and what I'm hearing from the members of this committee is that not every member of this committee, and certainly not 4, are going to vote for every piece of your proposal.
Oh, I'm not asking for every piece. What I heard was there's not anything that we can do. There was just a vote taken that failed, okay, that the concept was leave it exactly like it was. Let's take it to the commissioners and tell them there's not anything we can come up with. I'll be honest with you. I'd be embarrassed to go before the commissioners and say, there's not anything we can do
And
to
that's
make this
your
better.
opinion, and that's what makes us the United States of America. Because you got one, you got one, you got one, I got one, and she's got one. And guess what? None of them seem to be alike. So that's just the way it is.
Yeah,
I like the training part because I used to work for the Georgia Department of Labor, and you know what I did? I trained people. And training, there's a lot of things behind that training that they get. And, you know, and doing it yearly, you know, with the person who's doing it, or if God help us, if Jessica were to leave, we would have to bring somebody in and have them trained. But I think training is the basis for not making the mistakes that you're so worried about somebody's going to do it. But hanging somebody out to dry, and this is another problem I have.
No.
Where Virginia Deacle felt like she got hung out to dry, she got called ugly names. That's inappropriate behavior. That's inappropriate behavior. My thing is this. I feel like we should do the training part of it, but we should not, it is not up to us to make sure that there's some kind of punitive damage to them. I mean, if they did it on an ongoing process and it was every week, then absolutely, they don't know what they're doing.
If they do that, it's not just going to be on public records, it's going to be with all parts of their job.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's a person who just can't do the job.
And then that has to be dealt with.
Yes, but I cannot see just because this is a political year, there are things run high here, the tension, and I really think that we need to get this training done. I think it is the most important thing for these people who are supposed to do this job. Am I saying that what's on your list is wrong, Steve? No, I'm not. But what I'm saying is, you know, you're saying that a procedures manual. I'm going to tell you something. If we tell them there's a procedures manual, we'd like them to do that, you know what? They're going to look at us and they say, when do we have time to do a procedures manual?
No, we would do the procedures manual.
Oh, no, I'm not going to do a procedures manual for these folks.
Okay.
No. That was not our job to do procedures manual.
Wait a minute.
You read it again.
I want to support the training.
Okay.
By the way.
Okay, the support. Okay, Bob, by the way, is willing to vote yes on something.
But I've been trying to say that for about 35 minutes.
I know. I'm sorry, but
obviously,
policies and procedures.
Which is what my proposal specifically related to is just policy and procedure.
Well, I think the policy's fine. I think our policy is very clear. The policy is nothing more than reflective of what statutorily we need to
So what I have done is expanded policy to clarify procedure to try to streamline it. That is what I wrote for you all today.
and I'm happy to read this.
I would like to discuss it more with you, but it appears to me it's the same procedure we have now with the exception of an upfront $50 charge.
No, because there's also a consultation as well, which the person has to train for.
That might stand up. The consultation might not. You might not be able to, depending on how you define consultation.
Yeah.
Because you can't question.
Well, then all the training, you know what? No, it's not question. It's training on how to do your request. That's what the consultation is, which you've already said. There's no point to train if you can't have a consultation.
That's why I want to have a discussion with you to determine what your definition of a consultation was.
Someone who's been trained in the procedure says,
and can help that person help get the information they need.
Here's what the system can do. Here's how to do the search terms. Here's your form.
And that's what part of the procedures manual is. Part of the procedures manual is one of the first steps that the custodian or their designee should do would be to negotiate.
You all have told me the First Amendment has training. Why are we creating procedures manual if we want to send someone to a First Amendment training?
Because they can't remember. When you go to it, I guess...
Doesn't the First Amendment provide handouts or something to take home?
Yes, they do. Well, the PowerPoint's a great one.
Then we don't need to create another manual because the First Amendment people did it.
Everybody on this committee was given.
Yeah, exactly. Right, so it exists. So why am I going to reinvent the wheel and write a procedures manual that mimics what the First Amendment people already did? That sounds so silly to me, Steve.
Does it really?
Yeah, it really
that
does.
happens all the time. County governments borrow documents.
Right? Oh my
God.
I want to create bureaucratic redundancy because it happens all the time. No, I'm not going to do that.
Would you rather present it to them as a First Amendment document, or would you rather present it to them as an official Wakulla County document? What is the difference other than...
Because it's already been done by the First Amendment, and we could say we've adopted the protocols as established by the First Amendment Foundation?
Well, that's fine. If that's how you want to implement, you're doing the same exact thing that I'm saying we need to do.
Yeah, without
without
duplicating a procedures manual that's going to, by the way, cost the county money.
And create a situation for somebody to fail. Because now there's a manual, you have to go right.
You know what this is?
Okay.
This is a difference in verbiage.
What if I just took the first page off of their PowerPoint presentation and put Wakulla County Procedures?
If you feel that's
would that,
necessary, I don't know why. I'm saying I'm willing to adopt the protocol.
Do we agree that the protocol, let's just use the First Amendment Foundation's PowerPoint and say, this is the procedures manual?
Yeah. But don't write a whole new procedures manual.
That is contradictory to the Wakulla County policy, and it's also internal. The Wakulla County policy internally conflicts with itself.
Well, here's the problem.
You know that.
None of us, not the first one of us, is so so educated on the Wakulla County. Now, y'all may be with the First Amendment thing, and there are some things that I think out of that are absolutely wonderful. It was a very good PowerPoint. But here's the problem. It's once again your opinion. And what Heather did, she went back and rewrote it based on the statute. That's what she said. Unless I missed it.
And if we add the training...
I can't believe that after all those years, you know what her job should be.
But I'll tell you right now that I am not embarrassed to go to the Board of County Commissioners and say we are at 3-2 and you need to...
I've already talked to all of them on the phone.
I mean, I'm not embarrassed to say that if we can't have a further discussion about how to do this.
Well, that's okay, because we haven't made... Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah.
Let me mention in my stuff, because of what Paige said. In my stuff, that's not quite the homework I was assigned, I guess, but my experiences are exactly that.
No, I know, and I understand
Where
that you're bringing your experience to the table.
No, I mean, internally, and the Wakulla County policy says there will be a custodian. Okay? Then you have different departments or groups saying, well, you can ask me.
So did you say there's not one designated custodian? Is that
There was at one time. It was Virginia.
It was Virginia.
And then just...
No. It's a
custodian is Dave.
Administrator.
Or is
designee.
Correct.
And that's now...
Jessica.
And Jessica is hiring a person that's going to actually do it, and then Jessica will be the backup.
What's the problem here? I'm not sure I understand.
Well, they're having training. When I email, this is when Tim Barton was administrator. When I email Tim Barton, he says, "We'll go email this person." Well, I thought you were the custodian. Well, you email that person, and then I email that person, and he says, "Well, I'm not going to talk to you." I mean, those are.
So we're talking about a staffer who you don't have to communicate with anymore, and this may have been an individual issue.
Yeah, I was going to say, this sounds like a personal thing to me that they
it's all personal. Because...
No, I didn't mean it to be unkind. It just sounds like I know what was going on around here at that time. And
I'm going by the procedure.
It does sound like the procedure was followed and that you got to write out.
Yeah.
You did.
I'm supposed to write Barton according to the procedure.
Correct.
I was told you were.
But now you've got a new guy.
Has
Has David dealt with you that way?
No.
Okay. So possibly the change in staff could have solved that problem?
Maybe.
But we haven't given us a full chance yet. We've said there's a problem with the policy.
Then they don't want to change the policy based on that past
experience. So we want to actually give David Edwards a chance to do his job and prove himself.
And we want Heather's policy to work. And if it doesn't work, or what she's written, then we'll find out. Then we'll find out where the weak point is, and that's when, maybe they'll bring us together or another group together. I don't know, but I just think there have been so many things that have happened in this county, you know, Ben and all his problems, and then Dr. Kessler and his problems, and then and then Tim Barton ending up the interim, and there's been so many things that have happened. I don't believe, and now Virginia's gone, and if Virginia was part of the problem, then maybe that part of the problem is gone, and we need a chance to let it work with our new administrator and Jessica doing her job and hiring somebody. Yes, sir.
I guess, I can't tell you how frustrated I am that there's reluctance to provide and call it what you will, whether it's the First Amendment Foundation's procedure manual, I don't know.
I have no reluctance to provide a manual, I have reluctance to write a new one.
If somebody, say for instance,
They ain't gonna take it.
somebody was to get hit by a bus, and now you've got a new person in that slot.
You train them.
So they start, how do you train them without a manual? How do you train them? What do you do?
You send them to school. Send them to school.
You
training. Send them to a training, a workshop.
So you have to wait until the next scheduled training.
Well, that depends. That depends on what the availability of the training is. If you can hire a trainer.
You know, there's exceptions in every job that you do every day.
I guess I have a hard time understanding why a job description, so to speak, for this particular job, which is fulfilling public records requests, can't be a 3 or a 4-page manual that says these are the steps you go through. You take the request. You can take it via the internet from Respondomatic, or you can take it over the phone. You cannot ask who it is. They can be anonymous. There are just a number of things that would be very easily outlined, in my opinion. I understand it takes some time to put together. But I just think it would benefit the county immensely. I know that it is a very complex procedure when you first look at it. Once you work with it, you get better and better and better and easier and easier. But fulfilling a public records request is not an easy thing to do. There are a lot of caveats, there's a lot of requirements, and there's a lot of very serious ramifications if they're not done properly. And to say that we just hand somebody, and Heather did a good job on the policy side, I don't disagree, but I think it's lacking woefully on the procedure side that says this is how we're going to implement this policy. These are the steps that we do. These are the forms we fill out. This is what the fee schedule form looks like. These are the fields you fill out in the Excel file. You know, those types of things, I think, is a job description that just ensures somebody's success. It helps that individual in their job to be able to read through that and go, okay, I'm to step 3 now. My next step is I need to call these people back within 5 days. Instead of trying to interpret what the county attorney wrote, and I'm not belittling what the county attorney wrote. I think the policy is good. I know that there's some tweaking that still needs to be done between the current policy and its procedures, but I just think you're helping set somebody else for success rather than for failure by providing that. But
okay, so
that's just how I feel about it.
Procedural manual for an employee. Training, procedural manual. I heard a checklist from you. Bob, you have something to add.
I want to make a motion that we have.
My motion's still on the table and in discussion.
And I can't do it now. Your motion's on the table. Apologize.
Sorry.
I'll call it.
Go just call the question on. So we're out training.
Can we, for this matter of a record, for make sure we all understand what the motion is? I know it was long.
The motion was, maybe I can shorten it. The motion was for us to have, for the county to, what was the motion?
You were saying that we should send the employee to training.
I believe that there should be training to the state because, as we were told, the legislature changes things as far as, and it has changed under our new governor anyway.
And they provide a 2-day training.
And they provide a 2-day training for...
Okay, I'd like to amend this a little bit then. So the training that I want to have it up to just that we recommend at least 1 training annually, at least 1.
Yes.
And we leave it up to the discretion of the county administrator to decide which 1 or more trainings the designated employee or employee shall receive.
Yes, but I really want them to go to the one that has...
With the state.
With the state.
Okay.
The one that they do that way.
Okay, can I interject? Just,
sure.
Okay.
The First Amendment Foundation, number 1, they're cheaper. So it's a whole day seminar, but it's what, $35 or something. And they, right at the beginning of their seminar, go over changes recent changes in the law. I mean, there's a bunch
Concerning state and federal, or just state?
Just state. The Sunshine Law and the Florida Public Records Law is separate and distinct from any federal stuff.
4 years, yeah.
Also, because of state budget cuts and where we're going legislatively, I'm afraid that may not always be available. And if we tie David Edwards into saying it has to be that one and that one's canceled, then our employee has no good.
Okay, let's do that. Let's
It's
do that.
inexpensive.
Okay.
They do it for a living. If it's, you know, if you're just a regular staffer and you only need 1 day of a 3-day seminar, whatever Virginia said, well, here's a 1-day seminar, $35, and they can take up a collection as far as David probably paid out of his pocket as far as that goes.
I'm okay with that.
You know.
I'm okay.
But I don't want to specifically mention.
So we leave it to a minimum of 1 training per year for the designated employee. We leave it up to the discretion of the county administrator. We can make some suggestions to add on to this.
That is fine.
And I'd rather it be something that is suggested more than what would be the word concrete kind of word mandated because of what you just said, the training. That's where I was going with it. Is can we make it?
We want to say that they have to get training, but we're going to suggest some possible trainings, but leave it up because we don't know in the future that some wonderful new training might be created that would be.
Have you got a schedule for when they should do these?
They're generally in the fall, but they haven't come out yet.
Okay.
And the other thing is, if there's no sense in a checklist, to my mind, if this committee feels like, you know, you don't feel like employees should code their emails.
Well, here's the thing, though. I really would like to see your list because there may be a checklist because there may be something on that checklist that we haven't even thought of yet that may lead us to think of something else. And there's nothing wrong with seeing that checklist. I actually want to see it.
So now, next meeting, when we like
Okay, so let's the next meeting, and then we know that we need to see Hugh's checklist.
Okay, we never voted.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, voting on the yeah. All those in favor of accepting
The training.
the training?
Training.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
So we're unanimous on that. So that is one apiece of something we can move forward. So at our next meeting, we have some things to discuss, and we need to bring some more things to the table.
Checklist.
Would you write? Do you want to write out your proposal?
Yes, and I'm going to talk to Heather because I want to ask her. I have some specific questions I want to ask her, but I want to. So I want to call her.
It sounds like you have questions for David Edwards that you want to ask him at any time, maybe too.
Yeah, I wanted to make a motion. If I need to do it in a motion form to have him.
Oh, to have him at our next meeting.
At our next meeting, just for a few minutes, because I think it'll clear some of the questions that you had with what David's thinking is as the person that is the custodian.
Is there a line item in the county budget for training?
For public record training?
Yeah.
I don't believe so, no.
What about other trainings?
There are.
Fire training, things like that?
Yeah.
So there's really...
But they've been cut. There's a policy in effect that there will be no training. And I think that moratorium on training is still in effect.
And that's the reason I'm
I don't think they've ever lifted it. The board passed a resolution or a policy that there will be no training unless it was required for certification. If your training was required for certification, if the custodian of records had to have a certification to be the custodian, that would be allowed. If it's a firefighter that requires a live burn certification, they would pay for that. But if there's not a certification at risk or in jeopardy, they're not paying for training.
That's why I suggested $35 as opposed to.
And I don't think there's going to be a certification for that job like you're talking about, but I think there needs to be some training for the new person that comes in. And that's why I want to make it. Well, I was interested.
I don't know. There may be in a government class that maybe have...
No, I might have said it wrong.
I just know that if I were that employee stepping into a position that I've never ever stepped into,
that I would want to see as many procedures, policies,
how do you
PowerPoints. I would want to see the manual and say, this is what they're expecting of me. I don't want to have to go out and try to learn it.
I'm not saying that's not where we're going to go, but I want to see his checklist.
I think you're talking checklists. We're talking about the same thing when you say checklists.
Well, no.
No?
My thought always has been to simplify the procedure. As if you're an employee, and they used to train all the employees, and that may have been mandated by one of the judges, but
I think that would have been smart. I was sitting here thinking everybody should be trained.
But the point is, my point has always been, you're trained, and I came up with the checklist after I've read an article about checklists generally, and quantitatively they were exceptionally well.
Sure.
Yep.
That Wande guy in the New York. Me. I'm an employee of the county. Here's my training. Here's my checklist. These items are exempt. These things are exempt from public records.
Like on his sheet.
I send an email. I write in that email, exempt material. Then, when somebody wants 1,000 emails, the exempt ones, they want 1,000 of my emails, the exempt ones pop out for review of the line. It saves attorney time,
Okay.
supervisory review. I have,
So you're looking for a format for them to follow in order to get what you...
where requested emails don't cost either party. See, I've always wanted an efficient flow of information both ways. And I think that emails a hang-up and extensive use of staff time is a hang-up. I think a procedure on emails will cut down both ways. I mean, it drove Virginia nuts, and I don't think it should have. But it's like Paige, and this is my thing. I'm totally in favor of training. But you train a bus driver. Here's your checklist. This is, you check your tires and this and that and the other. And if you have a flat because you didn't check your tires and you kill a kid, the county is liable. I mean, there's absolutely no question. But if you checked your tires and if this and if you had something in the road or that, you have mitigating circumstances that bring the liability as they proportion liability.
Which is why we want to see your checklist. Because we're not saying that...
Well, no, I mean, it seems like it was discarded as a matter of fact. Well, the attorney's going to read it.
No. She sat there and said that.
She is. I mean, basically, and we can't control whether the attorney doesn't think the procedure is enough of a safeguard.
Well, here's the thing. I won't.
No, I've got an earache. Go ahead.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I don't know. It's been hurting since last night.
Well, and I think to add, you very eloquently expressed the concept of a checklist, and I'll just expound on that a little bit. As personal experience, as a pilot, as a commercial pilot, I understand I've been through a lot of training. But every time I get in an aircraft,
Got your book.
I will not fly that aircraft unless I have my checklist.
And I'm glad. My father's a pilot. Absolutely.
Exactly. That's why you have to have. And again, though, this is coming back to a step-by-step procedures manual and you have subsets. You were talking about the subset being a.
Yeah.
You were talking about
by the NTSB.
No. It's put out by the aircraft manufacturer. But the point is that he was talking about a subset for dealing with emails. Well, a checklist is the same way. You have a subset for prior to takeoff checklist. You have an engine start checklist. You have the different checklists so that as you go through these, call it a procedures manual, call it a checklist, call it whatever you want. It's a step-by-step definition of the process that needs to occur to effectively, reliably assure the public records is produced in the most efficient manner and safe manner. And that's my only point. So that's...
All right, because we said we're willing to talk about training, we're willing to talk about a checklist. We haven't ruled out the idea of providing procedures, but we're saying that if something already exists, that we can adopt for the county,
incorporate them. Oh, no need to reinvent the wheel.
Writing something.
Sure. Well,
and
you,
as one of the most motivated people to have a manual, because you personally really see the utility of this, for you to sit there and say, but I want equal responsibility from everybody at this table, if everybody else doesn't feel the same buy-in for your manual that you do, that's kind of your baby. So you can't get mad at us if we say, we're not so keen on that.
No, what I heard was that no, that won't fly. We're going to vote against it.
But that's
completely.
what you heard. You can put 100 people in a room and they'll hear 100 different things.
I understand, but at least
Here's the thing,
a policy is here. A procedure.
The procedure. I hear him being open to procedure, but not changing policy. The policy is the existing policy that we were handed.
Agreed.
And he sounds pretty open to procedure. He's already agreed to training. He's talking about it. He's talking about considering a checklist.
We got training today.
He went from no to accepting training. Okay, 3 meetings ago he was at no, we're done. Why am I even talking about this?
3 weeks ago I was on the phone with all 5 commissioners telling them I was done.
Okay, so you might be frustrated by the type of progress we're doing, but there has been real progress here. Because you've been moving immovable rocks here, so you've done that.
Well, there's just so much more to do.
There is, but you're probably not going to get
well,
everything
Mohammed,
you want, and you've got to be
we will
willing to
see how to get that
also.
mountain done.
Okay. Well, you're way late for your.
Well, I emailed them and said I'm still in another meeting, and they're probably. So we need to set our other meeting date, and I'm going to propose that it be April 2nd, 2:00.
April 2nd is a what?
As a Monday.
I'm sorry, April 2?
Yes, April 2.
And when is our deadline?
We extended it till May, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're bringing work products to the table. We have already agreed on one piece of the recommendation that we are going to bring forward. So, Bob went from no recommendation to agreeing to an actual recommendation today. I
went from being done to trying.
Right. So yeah, I think those are huge, and I'd like you to kind of reframe, Steve, and walk out of here understanding that you actually won concessions. Because you did.
I appreciate that very much. I mean, I do. I feel passionate about saving the county money and still providing public records. I think that's what the whole concept to begin with was, what can we do to save the county money in this and still provide.
Well, I think we all believe passionately in the Sunshine Law, because without it, I mean, government in the dark doesn't work for anybody.
Amen.
2 o'clock.
Amen.
2 o'clock.
Rachel.
2 o'clock.
Monday, April 2nd.
2 o'clock.
Monday the 2.
Okay, what is the 2? Yeah, 2 p.m. Okay. And we have some homework assignments, and we'll come back ready to put them on the table. Who's asking David Edwards to be here?
He was.
You want to do that? Okay, please. We'll talk to him also, but also if he can be here, that would be great.
When would we like maybe have him at 2:30 so that we get, or 2:15?
So we can talk for a few minutes? Yeah, that's
fine. We got
fine.
other meetings.
Yeah, we do. So
And
2:15 or
2 o'clock.
2:30? Yeah.
2:15 good?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Okay.
All right, I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Somebody call the time.
Time is...
The time of death is
4:13.
4:13.
Okay.